next Monday.
Yeah, I know. What's next? And I think I figured out a way that we'll be over here on Zoom if she wanted to. I know it's not. Yeah. No, I want to.
Did you find out what the settings were?
Not yet. I haven't looked at it yet, but I will. I think I know what it was. Like, remember when we had us check off?
Right.
Which the input and output basically.
Yeah.
Hi, Barbara. I didn't even see you tonight. It's okay. Wow.
They're on sale.
That's awesome.
Isn't this nice, ladies?
Now you are in a very special place. Yes. That's right. That's right. So, Jen, is that you right there? So we have one. No.
I'm gonna leave it
And it's
unlocked,
unlocked,
but
yeah. So someone comes in and we'll wait, Jen, till you get your seat. No, don't say that. No, we'll wait because we have to. So we are.
Jen, I saw this yesterday, but I love the mom, so I think that.
Right,
does anybody want
Yeah.
Jody and Tony, you guys have those, nice. Okay. There's also chairs, if anybody needs a chair, it's okay.
Sure, thank you.
Yeah, right.
you'd see the look of like.
There's extra stuff over there.
Yeah, we have time. I'm gonna come around and it's.
We can be flexible. And move around tonight. Not to be over. Be comfortable in our body. Wow. Joel was pumped about this Me sometimes. Say it 100 times. Or like, I have to Yeah, this is everyone. We can fill those gaps in. Yeah, those blankets out of the way and bring the circle a little bit closer together. Yeah, exactly. Welcome everyone. Tonight.
Guess who's Tony? Go ahead.
We're all Tony. We're all Tony. I'm not giving a spiel. We're just saying my name. Okay. I just wanted you to. Okay. I'm Carrie.
What is my name?
What is my name today? Let me reflect. Hi everyone, I'm Carrie. It's nice to see you all. Say hi to our neighbors. That would be nice. Hi.
Lori. My name is Kelly.
Hi, Kelly. So we're just gonna do a little centering to start so we can all be in the same space. So if you wanna close your eyes or just have a gentle gaze down toward the floor. The opportunity to arrive in the space with one another. Feel into the energy of the room right now. So to arrive in your body, you weren't just in class with Carrie coming from outside of the studio, it's nice to just take a few deep breaths. So just be here and let go of feel yourself drop into center. It's nice to place your hands over your heart to make that neurological connection of dropping into the heart. What you're feeling in your body. To create any specific feelings, but instead just embrace what you're feeling as we gather together. And what are we doing? What's the space with everyone? Certainty, excitement. Memory that sensing. Feel ready to all sign up for this evening of living yoga. Great stories. All right. What else? Hold on to that. It's yoga, like how to keep that in your mind all the time. What the practices and your mindset. Just come. Exactly. Like this door? Got it. Yeah.
having to work in the morning, kind of trying to keep a piece of that. You want to be kind to other people and understand things. If they can get somewhere, but things go.
That's before the first test is getting out of the parking lot.
That's true.
How to be present in so many different situations, just to be conscious, be aware.
And like this is such a like Eastern philosophy place, like living in yoga, and you go into the everyday world and it's demanding that Western kind of philosophy and everything needs to happen now. And there's deadlines, so I think trying to get that lifestyle into a world that's demanding would be the opposite.
So many things come to mind.
I know, I'm like, cool.
Now we know what we're talking about, so.
Yeah.
I like that you said freedom, right? Because that's really what, living in alignment with yogic philosophy, what its purpose is to give you freedom. No matter what, like everything that you said, all those things that are happening every day. How do you not get involved? It's impossible. So let's just set that right down, right? You're just involved because you're human. Yeah. What are you gonna say?
Yeah, I was just gonna say it's how you get involved. It's how you are engaging. Right? So one thing that can be helpful right off the bat is like, how can you change the question that you're asking and start to become curious? Right? When you become curious, you start to ask different questions. And instead of I'm involved in this thing, it's how am I involved in this thing? How am I engaging? And with what am I engaging? Right?
That's what I wanted to ask Taylor when you said that. I was like, you said the expectation of the Western world. But it's like, what's your relationship with that?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like I try and have like this go with the flow kind of mentality, but then I like most of us work full time. I'm in school full time, and I have responsibilities. And I feel like everything is pulling you in all these different directions. So after I walk out of yoga, even the day after, I'm like, I'm in order. I can deal with this. This is fine. But then it starts to get like 2 days into it, and 2 days away from it, and you're like, I'm looking at the direction. I can't. Well, I should say I have a harder time pulling myself back inwards and focusing on that.
Same thing happens to me too. When I don't believe it, I'm like, man, I've been here a long time. I'm not getting a feel when I haven't been here. So there is the thread, right, of coming back to actually practice together. That's always a huge reminder. But one of the most important tools is our breath. Like it's so easy. I just had this conversation with someone who asked me a question about like why they've gained weight, and she wanted to make an appointment and talk about nutrition. And I was just like, at first I'm like, yeah, we can do that. And I'm like, wait a minute. Like how many times throughout your day are you remembering to breathe the right way? Right? You guys, if you come to yoga, in and out through your nose, your belly fills and empties. Like that's usually it's just remembering that you have your breath. And then how many times throughout the day do you actually relax? And I don't mean laying down, you don't have to like Cleopatra it or anything like that. That's really nice. If you can, then definitely do it. But like to physically bring awareness to your own body and feel it relax from head to toe. How are we doing this every day? Yeah, all right, Emily. Does it help?
It does, but it's hard when people around you, like most of the people that you deal with on a day-to-day basis, are so not even, they don't even know what yoga is. Oh, you trust yourself with yoga like this?
Yeah. But they don't even need to know that you're
No.
doing it. That can be hard, right? If you have these practices, right? And then you try to share it. So relaxing your body is, and these are, you know, how do you remember how to do that? How do you remember how to breathe? How do you remember how to relax your body? Like, what are those missing links? This is why we have these things, right? Malas, or we have the bracelets, or we have whatever little things that you know you all have somewhere, crystals. Those are supposed to be our reminders. We have these annoying things that also you can set timers to even just, so it's a habit, right? Like it's starting to create, and it sounds so easy, but I mean, nobody raised their hand when I said how many times a day do you relax your body. But those are the things, because it's so much about the nervous system, right? When we want that freedom. All of yoga is really about calming the nervous system to get to that one point. So if we're not doing that, then we're just always left in some form of stress or fight or flight. So what would you guys say as like related to remembering? What are the things that keep you in remembrance?
Kind of piggyback off the journey and just thinking of my own practice with it, journey with it, that it's also the how, like how we're engaging, but where is it showing up in my body? You know, like where am I feeling whatever it is, and that's a doorway for usually inviting a breath. Because I'm feeling it usually here, you know, like in the chest or in my throat or whatever it is, and that's become a huge part of my practice, is standing on where am I feeling it in the body. Is it all mental? Am I like engaging through the mind? Am I physically, you know, that nervous system, the heart rate, some thoughts? Yes. Yeah. So that's been a huge. I think that's the thing for me where you see it on the physical practice, right? When you're in class together or on our mat, you feel the different things that you can really start incorporating outside. When that coworker comes in, and you just see their face, and just where does it hit you first?
Can you say where? Like where? Let's name some parts of your body that you feel.
Go up like
Right.
Yeah.
And I've
Yeah.
noticed that
Yeah.
part when people get like, oh, yeah, relax those, that will help a lot, because I carry it all right here. Yeah, they immediately go.
And how many times in our practice do we like have you relax your shoulders away from the earth? It's that coworker, right? That you're saying, all right, I'm gonna let it go. Thankfully, I love all my coworkers, so I never feel that, but I have some little bosses at home now. Now you have to relax. So for me, it's the awareness in my body, and that's where the physical practice has been like the catalyst for everything else. And then everything else starts clicking, like what Jen and Candy talked about. You know, the breathing, and then you're noticing all these bits of information that you're learning, taking in during the class. It starts making sense.
I am curious though, like if we go around the room, how quickly, like where do you feel it in your body?
I'm on neck and shoulder and cheek puncher.
Okay.
Yeah, that's a bit of John too.
Which I find that I can now I can shut it off pretty quick, but
Depends on who it is for me.
yeah, it's just the consistently going over.
Yeah, and the awareness, I like to tune in and be like, okay, punching my teeth all day and realize it.
Right?
Give me a minute. Breathe.
Stretch it out. I'll do like my chest or my legs. I'll be like walk.
Alright.
Neck, shoulder, teeth, puncher.
Ditto, that's me,
Coin
yeah.
that term.
That's amazing.
Controllers, yes, definitely.
I would say neck, shoulders, but also digestion.
Yes.
Yeah, yes, yeah, neck and shoulders, but definitely digestion.
I'm a clencher and my right hand is, it's like this. And not affect my left hand at all. I don't know if I'm making it. It's fight or flight. But yeah, it's
Note to self, always change your
Yeah.
Down there.
I noticed in the upper back, like in between, and then I also had an experience where I realized that I was having this period where I was getting very lightheaded, and it took me months and months to figure out what was going on and what's just going on. I realized I was like subconsciously holding my breath. And I did all kinds of things and it didn't go away, and then all of a sudden I somehow recognized that, and then once I started paying attention, but I mean it was like scary. I felt like it was suffering too or something.
Right.
definitely challenge for this.
Shoulder, teeth, punching.
This and chest sometimes. I clench my teeth and I feel it in my chest and my brain is always racing. And I feel like I can't, like I just wanna say, even when somebody's talking to me, or they're yelling or whatever is happening, I wanna say something too, even though I don't know that somebody else is talking. Like I feel like I have to blurt something out. So that too. I feel it in my throat.
I'll just add mine too.
Yeah.
Cause I definitely feel it in digestion, but I always feel my arms get super charged also, like I wanna start swinging. I don't, I'm not a fighter, but that is where I feel it. I get sick to my stomach and then my arms get super charged.
Mine's definitely neck, shoulders, digestion is affected. And I find myself doing like, I must have like a personal mantra, because my fingers will, like, I'll find myself. Like,
Mudras.
I have like a mudra, that's what I meant, mudra. Like, it will be so curled up tight, and I'm like, huh, all right. I mean, maybe that's helping me somewhere. How about you?
Definitely in the chest and the belly.
Imagine some people are not even aware of where they feel it. So, first step. We're all there.
Yeah.
I love knowing how many people said jaw. So when we always say relax your jaw, you feel like we can tell that you're clenching your jaw, but we can't just because everybody does that. Yeah.
It's funny when you're talking about like the arms and the hands. I noticed that when my daughter gets upset, she has to like physically release it somehow. Like she has to throw herself on the pillow or hit something. And when you're talking about like you have to say something, like your body physically has to release it. And because we don't allow ourselves to do that anymore, we hold on to it even more and even more. Like your body physically has to let it go.
Yeah. Right. We don't release. I mean, that's part of like our natural response would be to release it in some way, sound or movement. Expression, yeah.
Just crying, okay, that's okay.
Yeah.
I feel better.
Right, but like you were saying, that's like the entry, the body is really, it's always speaking to us, and so that is the that's the link, the reminder too, is the body. Like the entry point of when you feel that happening, you simply take a deep breath, had to scan the body head to toe. I know it sounds so dumb. You're like, I know, why am I here? I know this already, but we're not practicing that, right? So practice is like, it's everything. Because then you can actually get to a different place when you breathe and you relax. Your brain can work in a whole other way.
And those practices go into spaces with your office or in the car, motor stop, and whatever it is, take it everywhere. You start to become yoga. You know, so it's not like you just practice here, but you become it. Always messy. We're human, having, we talk about this a lot, the centering and meditation, that a lot of people come in and will say like, I can't stop the thoughts, or I can't, and it's crazy to think that we should be void of those things. It would be impossible. It's to notice those things and then notice the reaction and making those little shifts with breath work, interest, you know, the beads.
Yeah, and so it's like, if we think about it like a map, which is what yoga is, it's a map, it's a system. They wrote it all out for us. They're like, here are the instructions. Just read them and do the things, and you'll feel the things, right?
Here are the definitions, not really instructions. So they're not right. It's very laid out, but it's
a
also
system.
it's a system.
Yeah. And in that system, they also say there are many ways to make it through, right? There isn't just one way. But you're all here, so we're kind of on the same system in a way, right? And so it's like, one thing you can do is set yourself up for success, right? Put the reminders everywhere. Children are very intelligent. We have a lot to learn from them. So, looking for those things like, oh, that child is physically discharging because that's the nature of humans. Okay, how can I do that in a safe way as an adult too, right? But then it's having the beads, the crystals, put sticky notes if you need sticky notes to remind yourself to breathe, or of your affirmation of the day, or of whatever you're working through, right? Give yourself the reminders, help yourself out, right? Set the reminders on your phone, whether it works or not. Maybe it's not your thing, but try the different things to set yourself up for success. And then be patient, right? This is a practice because it takes time. Think about it like learning a new language. You don't just learn it in 1 week and then all of a sudden you're fluent. Speaking from someone trying to learn Spanish right now. This shit is not easy, okay? I'll tell you right now. Yoga is the same thing, or learning a new instrument. It's like, you have to show up to the instrument every day. You have to show up to these new vocabulary words every day. It's the same with your yoga practice, the yogic philosophy. You need those reminders. You need to be aware that it takes time, right? And dedication. You're committing to something. And you get to decide what you're committing to. Maybe it's freedom. Maybe it's, everything else that brought you all here today. So that's your goal, right? Is more of that. And are you in it for the long game, or are you trying to get that tomorrow or next week? Right? And are you willing to be gentle and patient with yourself? What can I do today? Maybe it's only 5 minutes. Maybe I'm meditating while I'm in the shower today. Or when I'm in the car, maybe I'm rolling my shoulders back before I see that coworker that makes them go like this. Right? And then maybe in a month, when you see that coworker, they don't go so high. They only go halfway. And that's how you know. That's the fruits of the practice. is instead of your shoulders going all the way up, they only go halfway up. And then it takes a year for them to only go up a quarter of the way. Right? You picking up what I'm putting down?
Yeah.
You know?
5 years, but yeah.
But you know,
Maybe they never go down.
maybe they never do, right? But you'll notice the subtle changes, and that's the thing about living yoga.
Yeah.
Is it isn't tomorrow. It isn't, even asana, right? You can see changes in your body. If you did asana every single day, you would see changes in your physical body, right? And it's tangible because it's your physical body. The inner workings of your being is a little more challenging to see. And so coming to that physical practice, like Terry was saying, it gives you examples of, okay, I can soften here, I can breathe. And then when you're in the grocery store, market basket particularly, and you're like, what the hell is going on?
Every single one.
Every time you go, for some reason, it's like an apocalypse in there. And the go silks, we love market basket for some reason. But you're like, oh, all right, it's just market basket. One day you're not like, what is this? You're just like, this is what it is. And here I go with my cart, and I'm just one of these people here today, right? It's the subtle changes, and you'll start to notice them when you pay attention.
I love going there.
I do too now.
And I compliment somebody in almost every aisle. You look so pretty today. So they get a point, and I just, so for me, that's the limit.
Yeah.
Is that you go in and you are kind to every person. And you say thank you. You say excuse me.
Okay,
Can I-
there's something I'm gonna say to you, ready? Because we've been in circles again. So I was just gonna say, a big piece of, like Jen said, maybe it'll take 5 years, maybe your shoulders never come down. Can you still love yourself with your shoulders up? Can you recognize that and go, all right, I still love my angry little shoulders and whatever, I can't get past this and,
It's so much
Yeah.
of that.
So
you let it fill up within and let it fill up.
I live in the woods and I work at home, so I don't have any coworkers. So for me, going out is that opportunity to connect, and the decision every day. But when I do, it's how am I going to connect? And it's actually makes everything so much more fun. Especially like when people are kind of tricky. My favorite thing, because you can't talk because I'm sitting down, is when I see somebody trying to do something, and I say, "Can I get that for you?" And they look at me like, "Are you crazy?" I'm really good at clapping. Just making that kind of like.
So which market basket do you
What do you
Long and like go.
But it is true. It is like we haven't gotten to that point yet, but it's going beyond yourself, obviously. Like that's a huge part of the practice. And it seems I actually have a story to read you from Jack Cornfield. Since we're talking about the grocery store, it takes place in a grocery store. Seeing if this works for me. But these all the same words that you're hearing.
Yeah,
It's
it's
gotta be
downstairs.
downstairs.
When I went downstairs, they called the kitchen.
You guys thought it was me.
It must be. I thought there was mystery ghost children.
Yeah, that was our conversation last Tuesday. With the three of us, we're like, is it haunted? It never has been before. Oh, finding the story, yeah. Finding the story, just took me a second. And I could also definitely use my glasses, but that's okay.
Do you want me
Writing
to
this
use
up?
that or you got it?
Yeah, I think I got it, yeah. All right. This young Army lieutenant began his training in breath and mindfulness. And after about 6 weeks, he was on his way home and stopped at a supermarket to do shopping. He filled his cart. It was crowded, late. He got in line. The woman in front of him was in the wrong line. She had one item, and she was supposed to be in the express line. He was in the Army, knew how things were supposed to be done, and was irritated by this. To make it even worse, she was holding a baby. And when she got to the checkout clerk, they started to talk about the kid, coo over him or whatever you do over babies. He started to get more irritated. Do you know there's a long line? It's late. As he got angry, because he had learned to pay attention, he could feel the heat in his body and the contraction, the suffering, but he took some deeper breaths and let it go. As he got up to the checkout clerk, he noticed that the baby really was a cute kid. So he said, that was a cute little boy. In fact, as the woman who brought the baby in and the checkout clerk had been talking, she passed him over to the checkout clerk to hold. The checkout clerk looked at the Army lieutenant and said, do you like him? He's my boy. You see, my husband was killed in the Iraq war last year. And so I have to work now, and my mom takes care of him, and she tries to bring him in once a day so I can see him. We're so quick to judge another person, or even more so to judge ourselves. And yet with one breath, one simple application, if you will, or invitation to be present and mindful, to see not just with our judgment, but to see with the clarity of mind and openness of heart, everything gets transformed.
That's a good one.
But that's it, right? So it is that mindfulness through the breath, in the body, through the body, that we're able to be present with ourselves and then create space around us, right? We talked so much already about the tension that we feel in our bodies, in our lives, around other people. But if we can just start to release some of that tension and allow that spaciousness to come into play, you know, you might find that your coworkers are a little more interesting than you think, or, you know, everybody has their things. You know, we're all carrying around a lot of suffering, a lot. And most people do not know how to even remember to take a breath. They don't know how to breathe, you know, and you do. So the fact that you're even here is like this great opportunity to use as a reminder in the back of your mind. Like, you know already, you know that it exists. And so when you remind yourself to just breathe, to create space, to listen to your body, you might even find that the tension is not yours. It might be the people around you. Because we are sensitive, yeah.
It's a big problem.
It's, yeah, and it doesn't have to be a problem, right?
Feels like one.
It does feel like, I understand, you know, I do. And again, it comes back to, well, that reminds me of a story, and then I will stop talking. But when I went to Hawaii to the Ram Dass retreat, I went for many reasons. But one of the reasons was to develop an understanding of my relationship with my mom, who is paranoid schizophrenic. So she's basically impossible to interact with and have a conversation with. And it's funny how all the speakers throughout that week there, even though they weren't talking to me, you know, so much of it spoke to me. And there was one teacher there in particular, Frank Ostaszewski, who had some really, like, I felt really connected to his insight. And a friend of mine that was there encouraged me to talk to him. And I would not normally talk to a speaker at like a big event like that, you know, it's like totally out of my comfort zone. But he really pushed me, like, just trust me, you know, go talk to him. And so I did. I approached him, I asked him if he had time, and he graciously sat with me. And I explained, you know, what I was trying to understand, and I was trying to have some kind of a relationship with my mom. And he offered this advice, which I have used constantly, you know, since then. And that was how long ago, Joanne? 5 years ago, maybe now? Since we went. And he said 6 years ago.
No, I'm sorry, it was 2018, yeah.
He said, within the boundaries of what you can tolerate, right? What's not going to harm me without putting myself into suffering too much. Set some time aside to talk to her. And when you do, maybe it's only 20 minutes. Start with 15 minutes, he recommended. And just be with her, you know, let her lead the conversation. And while that's happening, just feel into your body, he told me. Notice what's happening in your body. And just have that awareness of what's happening in your body. And stay connected to your breath. And breathe into it. And also, you know, while maintaining a connection with her without the expectation of anything miraculous happening. The miracle comes from learning my bodily response to the conversation and honoring where I am, but also the spaciousness, you know, creating a safe space for her to be able to have a conversation with me, whatever that looks like. And so that was just like this huge, I mean, much to what you were saying, it was just an opening for me to release this expectation that every time I talked to her, like I needed to try to help her or fix her or whatever, and just be with her in whatever capacity she can be in, and then be in my body and breathe into the place that's causing me anxiety and stress and discomfort and sadness and every emotion, you know. And it has. I mean, nothing has changed. If anything, it's, you know, we have less of a relationship, but I'm able to be in my body in that relationship and breathe into it and actually send her love, like extend love out and just create that connection, you know, of me being able to love her no matter where she is, even though she's, you know, she's not available.
So I don't believe for a minute that you have less of a relationship. I think when you show up, you know where she's at, your expectations, it's present. That's powerful.
Yeah, it's just a lot less. I give her a lot less of my time, I should say, because that's when I'm comfortable. So it doesn't necessarily mean it's a worse relationship, but it hasn't developed. It has developed. Whatever. I don't. It doesn't even matter. Like it doesn't. That's not even what it's about at all. Like, you know. Yeah. It just is. Like, so it's really just about the spaciousness. That's it. Just like that story.
Permanent freedom.
Yeah.
Did you feel?
Yeah.
So deeply about this, but the freedom that comes with not letting go, the expectations, and just meeting people where they are. The space within.
My peace. Yeah. Yes. Yeah. Totally.
Did you ever feel sad when you were doing that too? Because I feel like I separate myself from people sometimes, and I do feel freedom, but I also feel really sad because I feel sad that I need to do that, but I know I'm doing it for myself, and I'm getting better at working through that. But it's something I struggle with a little bit. Like, you know, I know I'm most important, but it just, I struggle with being okay with doing what's best for me, I guess.
I think that's where the balance comes in, like I don't necessarily
Both
feel
those things.
at the same time.
Yes.
Yeah.
I guess I'm working on that.
And you see it.
Yeah, yes.
Yeah.
definitely.
Well, there's a big piece too about sadness is uncomfortable. You know, so this is another part of the practice. It's like we are acknowledging our bodies and what's happening within us through the experience of those things. When I experience my stomach get sick and my arms get charged when I feel angry, that's uncomfortable. But now I'm aware, and I've been aware of it however many times that it's familiar, and I understand, oh, this is my emotion, anger. Okay, I'm feeling angry right now. You know, and it's the same with sadness. It's like when you have that experience in your body, you get to say, oh, this is my experience of sadness. Feeling sadness right now. What does that feel like? Maybe it feels uncomfortable. And yeah, you can have the understanding of, but this is going to bring you more freedom energetically or financially or whatever you're doing the thing for. But yeah, they can exist at the same time. And it's not to say that it isn't uncomfortable. It's gonna suck a bunch until it stops sucking, right? Like setting boundaries is fucking hard, right? Doing the thing that is best for you and your growth and your highest self. That's why we're here doing the practice, right? We get into hard yoga poses on our mats and we challenge ourselves so that when we meet a challenge in life, we have a little bit of experience of how we feel in a challenge, right? It's just these little pieces that start to move together. That's why Jen talks about yoga classes as threads or the beads of the mala, right? Each class is another bead on your mala of life. Coming to these events is like, it's another bead in your mala of life. A little bit of practice so that when you're faced with the real thing, you can tap into, oh, I've had a small experience of this. Here's a really big version of it. How am I going to engage? Right? Is that helpful? Yeah.
I think even figuring out what that means. Like it gets so subtle. We would say all these words too, right? And then it's like, but what does that mean? What do you mean? Yeah. What is it behind? What is a boundary? What is that? Why do yeah? Why is that this? Yeah. And so everything is always shifting based on your experiences too. Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah, it's always changing.
Yeah. For me, like the freedom from expectations, wherever it is out in the world, expectations of ourselves and what we perceive other people expect of us, and also what, like, I think we all have way too high expectations, which is something I really challenge with. And, you know, in therapy, lowering expectations, which for me is like very difficult to like work towards, but if I frame it in the term of like, well, accepting people where they're at or how they are, or recognizing like I have no idea what just happened to that person or what they just went through just to get here, or you know, sometimes you can tell they've already had a really crappy day and it might just be unloading on you. But you know, that's for me is like it's a huge challenge in like every part of my life.
So like in yoga, they would talk about, this is what I think it was Barbara that said, wanting to be more in the present moment, right? Which is obviously, you know, it's a practice and it's really hard to be present all the time. But the yogic suggestion is to work to be present and joyful in the task, relinquishing the fruits of the labor, right? That's really present moment. It suggests, and it's both, because obviously we know not every moment is joyful, but there is joy in every moment. So we have choices. So maybe whatever word that you want to put, doesn't have to be joy, but doing things with full awareness, even being present with people in full awareness and releasing the fruits of the labor, right? Which is like releasing expectations in a way.
Yeah.
You're doing
And
it
outcome.
because this is life. We're like sculpting our lives in every moment. And maybe we don't know what we're sculpting, but we just keep on sculpting because we're enjoying the clay in our hands. You know, that's another. You talked about like the Western world so much, and that's what it. We're like. Then we got to get here, and then this is next. And I've even heard it in yoga, like, all right, well, I'm pretty good at beginner. What's next? And I'm like, you can just stay a beginner forever. It's all right, because there's no what's next. It's just being.
I'm just like along those lines. I think what I with the whole expectations and stuff, I have a really hard time not feeling like self-indulgent when I take time to do things. I don't really do it for you, but like I can so to set aside time and be like, okay, I deserve to go to a yoga class. Like I feel like I can compartmentalize that, but I think even though consciously, like I'm aware that it's okay to take a few minutes, like to stretch my body at work. I remember recently just like reaching back and stretching and being like, oh, it felt like self-indulgent, like I should, like we don't even stop to eat lunch, like we work. So I guess any advice on, even though I consciously know it's not right, I almost feel like I'm programmed subconsciously to think that.
Well, you just said, like,
Yeah.
you are
Programmed.
our program, and it's all the conditioning. It's our society that's very all about achieving, goals, busy, because when you stop, and you are just with yourself, it comes into play all that uncomfortableness that you've never done. I think the self-indulgent piece is one where the more that you step onto the path, living with yoga, you see those little conditions. Realize that it's the work of the heart. It benefits everybody around you when you do this work for yourself, the inner work. It reaches beyond. I'm very tingly thinking about it because I just can think of that same thing when I first really started taking the time, carving the time out, even taking YTT and committing to that. But then you realize the ripple effect that it has. I'm a better wife, a better mother, a better sister, I'm more present in everything that I do. With a whole lot more awareness.
So is it just,
What
I'm
comes
curious,
to mind?
is it just like reminding yourself of that when you notice it?
So you're like, how do you do that? Okay, I'm such like how do you actually connect the dots? And that's what you're asking. Like, how do you do it? For me, I can only always go back to my own experience. What comes to mind when you talk about that is, for me, Louise Hay, her book, You Can Heal Your Life, right? So you should write that one down. It's about, like, for me, it was going back into my life and again, breathing into the areas throughout the course of my life that created that conditioning. And I still do it. I mean, this is like a regular practice because it doesn't, for me, it's not gone because I breathe into it once. You know what I mean? Like it's an ongoing practice, but it's literally the way that I picture it is like untying knots in my body when I've been unkind. I mean, years of being unkind to myself. It's, and it's still, like I said, it's still there. I still go in, I untie the knots and I continue to practice and grow more awareness around the things that maybe I think that I've even healed, but I realize that I don't, you know, like I had a therapy session today and it's a new therapist, so of course she wants to go into childhood. And so I'm retelling some of the stories and my body is having a visceral reaction and I'm like, I want to go back in and untie those knots more because it still is in there. It's cellular. So it's literally in your cells. So when you spend time consciously and you don't even have to feel bad about just do it right before you go to bed at night, right? So you don't even have to feel bad about that time because everyone has to sleep. And you just go in and just pick one thing, like go as far back as you can comfortably and pick one thing and breathe into the spaces in your body where you hold tension around that and feel the sensation of love, right? And of kindness and compassion to yourself and forgiveness. Forgive yourself for being so unkind to yourself.
It starts there, you know, the most important work, and you said it's not a quote, is the work of our heart, the heart. And it starts with that loving awareness, going in. And then it's like, you know, I could talk about that same thing going into childhood, and it's just, you see your parents differently. I view them with such different eyes now. The journey, I view them with so much compassion. As before, when you would have asked me maybe 6 years ago, it was very recognized so much. So, but it took that, the unkind, and also loving on myself, which felt so foreign. And what did that actually mean?
Because I read this book and I remember the author, but the title of it is "What Happened to You?" And so sometimes you just ask yourself, "What's wrong with me? Why am I doing it?" I said, "What happened to me? Like, what happened to me?" You answer your own question. This is why it's coming out. This is why you feel guilty. This is why you know whatever the feeling is. And just that sentence, just asking myself that and answering, and just giving myself validation. And not, you know, criticizing myself, just like it's okay. And again, it goes back to childhood and it's all that stuff that you have to work through or untying those knots.
Yeah. Forgiving.
Yeah, and I mean, even going a step before that is like knowing this is like intellectualized first that you are innately worthy. You are worthy of your needs being met, which is like if you need to stretch, you're worthy of a stretch, right? For a small example, but it's everything too. And there's part of you that doesn't necessarily believe that yet when you feel guilt for meeting your needs, right? And so you get to say, okay, well, I don't totally understand, but I believe this theory that I am innately worthy. And so I'm going to do things that align with this theory that I believe is true and working towards it, right? And then you do the things like come here and read the books and put reminders for yourself, have a little altar, or go back and do the meditation into your childhood where maybe your needs weren't met and you meet them with the love in your heart that you have now, right? It's all part of the process. And then you this is the kindness that they're talking about, the going into your heart that they're talking about. So you're creating a little bit more space for yourself to move in your world with freedom. Yeah. And even to go back like a little bit more, you know, what you brought up was so yeah, it's speaking to like expectations and what Lisa said also, it's like we don't need to expect of the other person to become our best friend too. I just wanted to add this in. Like when we're doing this work with the coworker that makes our shoulders go up or the person at the grocery store that's having a bad day on us, it's like the goal isn't to, or the sadness that we have to set boundaries for. We're not trying to be happy and excited to make that person our best friend. Like Lisa said, well,
just to be happy and excited, period.
yeah, like we're just honoring the relationship where it's at.
meeting them where
and
they are.
and feeling the freedom that comes from, well, this is where it is, and this is the most beautiful place that this relationship can get to, and I'm gonna be cool with it right there.
Is sometimes. Right. That's part of being present too, is like the isness of life. It just is.
The suspension of expectations.
Yeah, and you release those expectations, and you release them of yourself as well, right? And when you go through these processes, these practices, right, you just start to learn things about yourself and about your parents that you then, after you go through the process, you end up having compassion for, because you see it. You see it for its truth. Right? And you see it about yourself as well. You're like, whoa, I'm human? Dang, I forgive me for that. For thinking that that was wrong or bad or a mistake or not perfect or whatever it might have been. Right? I forgive me for that. I'm human.
I had this chime when I was living in my mom helped me. I used to get, I say used to very loosely, and so the idea behind this chime is, you know, you slam on your brakes and all of a sudden you get these little twinkle and you're inspired to be at peace as it grew on. And so, yeah. So like half the time, over the time I've had it, I thought like, wow, my emotions just disappeared. I'm so zen. But every now and again, somebody will cut me off and I'll smack them and be like, fuck you. And that's fine too. Sometimes
That's living yoga.
Yeah. Sometimes it's gonna wrestle with the chime and just feel like, whatever, this person sucks. So, yeah. It might be like 3 weeks since I've hit it,
Aware of the
but
anger. That's it. Aware of whatever it is that's happening. Aware of the good stuff too, you know, aware of everything. Just awareness is the key to being present. However that looks, not getting caught. I say that a lot too in meditation, is just see it all, let it be aware of it, and but don't get caught. Even on the good stuff. Because it changed. Change is constantly happening. Feelings, thoughts, sensations, lifestyles, I mean, just every constant change. So why, can be present and just be with it, whatever it is, however it is. I think you mentioned children before, which, 3 of them. One, there's 2. Children say I'm on there. But I'm finding, or I have found, that over the past few years, my other kids are 15 and 19. So there's a big gap, right? And that took me more than a minute to get used to. And, obviously I own a business. And my life changed a lot in the past 4 years. And having Juliet, like I could see, I mean, obviously she's like, to me, she is the most precious thing. And yet the struggle with being present with her for a while, like I'm just coming into not struggling as much because of the expectations that I put on myself around my business and maintaining this momentum that I had before I had her. But my joy really comes from just being present with her, and then the other stuff is some kind of like expectation that I have of myself. So when I allow myself to just play with Juliet, like I'm happy and she's happy and the rest of my house is happy because I'm happy, and it's the more that I honor that. And I find that to be true in so many areas of my life when I really listen to what actually makes my body feel calm. Like it's a whole new freedom. I mean, that is a huge freedom. What makes me feel calm? It's not necessarily the same thing as what I want to do or what I think I should be doing, But what brings me that calm feeling in my body, there's no knot in my stomach, my neck and my shoulders are not in pain, you know, but I'm actually calm. It's like I'm learning every day to make those choices, and they don't make everyone happy at all. And it's okay, you know. I want you to tell your version of I want you to tell your version of it because you live that. And I think that everyone deserves to hear that. But it is the both. It's the and. Like you can hold both, right? Knowing that I'm disappointing people and I'm actually healing myself and I'm growing this beautiful relationship with my daughter, you know, like I don't know, it sounds easy, like you guys kind of like, no kidding, you know, but to me that was really hard to make that shift.
Right, and that just shows that everyone's heart is different.
Yeah.
And you can choose your heart too, right? Like having everyone in the house is harder than having just one
Well,
person.
I'm the stress and pissed on
Everyone is
right.
exactly.
Yeah.
So we choose to be with Juliet.
Yeah.
And then less people are pissed.
So let's hear you.
Yeah. No, it's funny. I was just those of you that don't know me, I've lived nomadically for about 3 years now. And I was like, oh yeah, where's my piece? And I'm like, oh, I'm on a plane. But you know, yeah, it's when I first started traveling, I was driving, so I road tripped. I've now road tripped coast to coast and lived in like 7 different states. And at the very beginning, it hasn't stopped, but at the very beginning, my family was very against me doing this. And it was very difficult to continue to say yes to what my heart was telling me, right? My family was not supportive. They were very hard on me about leaving, and they didn't understand what I was doing, and they didn't understand why I wanted to do it. And you know, even to this day, right? It's 3 years later. Like I just said, I've driven coast to coast, and I've now lived and brought these practices to Panama, Costa Rica, and Mexico. And still, my family's like, "Oh, when are you coming home to live in New Hampshire?" And I'm like, "I'm not still. I don't live here anymore. Like this just isn't." You know, and I'm constantly having conversations that are really uncomfortable and really hard because my family is sad, and I feel like I'm disappointing them, right? And I love the lifestyle that I live. This is what brings me joy. This is what brings me peace, right? Exploring new cultures and places and meeting new people that I now have friends in all different countries, and to me, that's the coolest thing, right? And my dad is like, "What? Who cares? You know, your family is just all right here." And I'm like, "Yeah, it's cool for you. That's what's cool for him, right? But that's not what's cool for me. It's not my truth." And so, yeah, this practice is that freedom of being able to hold both. I can have really hard conversations. I can tell my family really difficult news, like I'm going to another third world country and getting an apartment with the locals. Like that's hard information for them to hear. And I have compassion. I understand. They're worried about my safety. They're worried about, you know, me joining a cult and weird things like that because I'm doing yoga and they don't get it, right?
I wanted to say too that even though like we're talking about making choices that bring us peace and calm, doesn't mean that it's easy either, right? Like
I got a whole list of those.
it's kind of like this juggling act of, you know, like
exactly. It's all of it. I know that ultimately I love to be in new places. I love to travel. I love to go for a swim every day, and I can't do that in New England in the winter, right? So I'm gonna go somewhere warm.
join the workout club.
Yeah, and it's hard, these conversations are uncomfortable, my life has taken on different sorts of obligations and responsibilities, like finding work in all these new places that I go, learning to speak Spanish so I can communicate and work when I'm in these other countries, finding places to live every month. I don't know where I'm gonna live in 2 weeks. That's a real statement, right? So I have different obligations and things that sometimes make me want to rip my hair out. Like I was telling Jen, I was angry this morning because I've been dealing with the passport office for months now, and it's been maddening. And I'm just like, yeah, I'm pissed about this. I'm angry. And this is living yoga. I can be angry and just say I'm angry and let my anger diffuse as it wants to, right?
Well, and I bet you once you took that deep breath, you got the call that it was in the midst, the spaciousness around it.
Yeah, and it's like, even just saying out loud your emotion, even just saying out loud the truth of what's happening. Like, man, I really do not want to tell my dad I'm going to Mexico right now. It's gonna be whatever. Man, I really, wish I could curse out this lady on the phone, but it's not her fault. It's like, all right, I can say those things because they're the truth. And that helps diffuse 50% of the emotion. It's just naming it, saying out loud, this is really what I'm experiencing right now. I don't need to be ashamed of that. I can just claim this is a true, vivid experience for me. And then what comes next after that? There's a few different options that then pop up when you're willing to claim your truth. Yeah, and it's like I was saying too, it's uncomfortable sometimes to choose yourself. And to choose, okay, I'm feeling freedom and sadness, right? I miss people too here. I have friends now in all these different countries that I don't know when I'm gonna see them again. And that aches my heart all the time. And my family too, and my best friends' kids are growing up, and I'm like, shit, you're 3? Where have I been? And Lucy, oh my god, I can't. So it's all the things, and I'm sharing all of this because your life is your vivid experience of your life. You have all your own intricacies. You have all your own obligations. You have all your own emotions. You have all your own set of life that all of this is applicable to.
That's too, just that, if you're here tonight by free will. And your own curiosity. So I think that's something to really explore and let that continue to develop into something. When you step onto this or open up to however you want to view it, you'll continue to explore that and see where it goes. Because I've had so many conversations about what used to trip me up when I really dove into this practice was, listening and seeing the yogis, and they were mostly men who left their children or didn't have children. Like, how do we bring that into real life? Like, I can't just sit and meditate all the time until you realize, like, being present with my children can become like a meditation. And it's not that you're dissociating, it's that you're just fully aware and present in every little thing. The walks in the forest. I'm that little yogi who's up in a cave in the Himalayas. That's me walking through the forest hand in hand with Willow, or whatever it is.
Or being present that you dissociated. Like, I need a break from this all. I'm
You're
gonna
aware that you're craving a break.
Yeah,
That's what,
that's part of it too. It's like, yeah, I need to not be present right now for my sanity. So I'm gonna do that.
Well, that's why they went to the caves in the Himalayas. I gotta go. So I'll write it down.
That's what the real
But
side
they
is.
just never come back and everyone's like, you are my guru too. And you're like, that's what I wanted, thank you. You're reminding me of a course that I did, True Self Leadership, and in that, a really helpful exercise that they had us do was, what are you thinking? What are you feeling? And what do you really want to say? What are you thinking? What are you feeling? And what do you really want to say?
The what do you really wanna say part hits me most, because I have a lot, I usually wanna say fear that I should not.
But it doesn't even have to be aggressive, you know, it can be
Right.
like in any situation that you're feeling, you know, what am I thinking, what am I feeling, and what do I really, it's real communication, because that's also a huge part of the breakdown that we have as to why we're feeling like we lose our practice when we leave the yoga studio, right? It's because we don't know how to communicate. How we're really feeling, what we really want to say. Because the tension that we're feeling most of the time on a day-to-day basis is surface tension. Behind that, there's so much more, like a lot what we talked about, you know, like going back. It doesn't even have to be way back in childhood, right? But it's just like, what are we really feeling? What do we really want to say? What is that third column? And then how can we actually communicate that? Like, I'm not actually stressed out because the house needs to be vacuumed. I'm stressed out because I have 500 emails and 40 texts that I have to reply to. But I'm mad about this, and then someone's trying to talk to me at the same time, so then I'm totally an asshole to that person. But it has nothing to do with that person. But if I could just communicate that I am stressed because of all this, I just need a little bit of time. But then we have all these other expectations that we should be balancing all this stuff. Why is that bothering us? Should be able to handle all this, you know. But
And this is where the community, the word yoga is union.
Yeah.
You know, it's like community and connectedness.
Communication in every part of your life.
Whether it's within your home, within your studio, wherever, like to be able to help.
Yeah, and communicate that you even need it. To be able to express, I mean, that, who has a hard time with that? Yeah. And sometimes I know from me, it will take me a minute to even realize, why am I being nasty? You know, and then I have to be like, oh, it's because this and this and this. And then I can finally sit down for Josh and be like, this is why, you know. And then it's up to whoever we're talking to obviously let that land wherever it lands. But I feel like the more that we're able to communicate, it also gives the people in our lives freedom to do the same thing, you know, to communicate back to us. And then that's like that spaciousness again, you know. I'm really about spaciousness, you know, creating that space where there is room for existing, right? For things kind of like that, the infinite possibilities. Because it's like relinquishing the control. We didn't even talk about that.
That's what I texted Jen today. She asked me, how are you feeling? One of my daughters is not feeling great, so my whole expectation, right, coming back to that for today, always when I have these events, I like to be quiet. I like to not have too much going on, so I can just be with myself, be whatever. So that really, I had to bring it to the doctors and, you know, then it's picking up prescriptions and
all the other parts of your day, though. There's a
Right.
million other things.
So when she asked me how are you feeling, like I said something about, you know, here I am thinking I can control my day, and it's like really I just can control my breath. So when I just come back to that, I'm fine. She's fine. I'm fine. This was all fine. It was all perfect. It was fine. Yeah. But it is
kind of fine.
Right. It comes back to it, just having somebody check on me was nice, like having Jen know intuitively how to just quiet, how to feeling. Those things are nice, so being that community, having that community, it's all perfect.
And there is a responsibility with showing up in spaces like this, wanting to learn more. There's a responsibility of you taking this away and then allowing yourself to integrate it into your life, which requires a certain kind of vulnerability on your part, right, of that integration. Because how can you be present if you're continuing in the same way that you have been that causes you the stress and causes you all the suffering? But it's like you have this information so you know, right? So it's like, again, it's like this expansion. You might leave here feeling great, and tomorrow you might feel like crap, or maybe the next day. There's always like this little contraction, and then there's this expansion. And it's being aware of that, allowing yourself to expand out to the new place, the new awarenesses that you have, and really work it. You know, really allow it to be a part of your life. How are you going to bring that in to your life and recognize it as living yoga, right? There's not an actual way to be a yogi, although we might have these ideas of what a yogi looks like. And some yoga teachers might speak really softly and act like they're kind all the time, and that's a lie.
He's a great one, my husband, right, said to me one day, I got aggravated and like had an outburst, and he said, "Oh, you're supposed to be yoga."
Oh, that's right.
Yeah. Like, that really sounds like, wow, you never want to eat again. Never even take a breath again. We had a nice long conversation about that.
Yeah.
I've had that thrown in my face many times in many areas.
Oh, that was, and
Like,
even
what?
that was my reaction.
What do you say? Like, what do you,
What
yeah,
did I
like,
say?
yes,
What?
not like,
I didn't
what do
let
you,
my
yeah, like, how do
face
you,
speak first.
right.
I was like, oh, wow.
Exactly, like, yeah.
I don't even know what it's come up with. I mean, crazy. Like my ex-husband, like people you hear other yoga teachers, and like I'm always just like, what are you like? There's no way to be a yogi, and whatever that word is. Like, it's not just because you practice this doesn't mean you instantly become like a Buddha, you know?
Right.
No. I thought that for the longest time. I like would try to force myself and
And
talk
then you
about
tripped
suffering.
up on that, and now you're angry at yourself.
10 years of,
Because
yeah.
why are you still having these very human reactions to everything happening in the outside world?
Yeah.
Then you realize I am not in a cave. So that's-
I think you've even experienced it recently. Cause like talk about the 10 years with like I was a vegetarian for 10 years because it makes so much sense, right? Like it just does on every aspect of the earth. But I was fighting myself for 10 years. And then I started to, you know, whatever, I heard different teachings from Ram Dass and even the Buddha, and it was like, I'm causing myself suffering so what I learned was that the more, if you were to go to a teacher, right, like a high up yogi, and say, I smoke, I drink, I eat too much, well, how do I quit? They would say, you don't. You do these practices, right? You do these practices until one day you just don't want to do it anymore. That's how it all works. You just keep doing it and doing it and doing it, and then you're just not doing it anymore.
So it's kind of like something like, I'm just trying to think of another way to think of this, and it's sort of like you want to become a yogi, or you don't want to be, you know, you want to be a vegetarian, but you're struggling all this time.
Yeah.
It's like the ego jumping over all the hoops, all the steps it takes to get to that destination. And all you want is a noun, you know what I mean? All you want is a thing, but really you don't want to do the actions to get there.
Totally. Yeah. It's all, yeah, that's the practice.
Yes.
Practice, practice, practice until eventually you're just like, you find yourself, just staying on the track of vegetarian, you just find yourself naturally choosing vegetables and rice. You're not even, like, it doesn't even occur to you that you're missing something. It's the same with the anger, right? It's the same with the anxiety. It's the same with all these things that we struggle with. We're not, because we meditate today, it does not mean that we're going to be happy and calm today at all. You know, it's cumulative. So over time, you look back and you're like, oh, that's cool. Like I didn't realize I haven't even hit my chimes. in 6 months. You know what I mean? Like that's how that works. And we talked about this, no falling off the bandwagon. So you hit your chimes, you're not starting from day one again. You know, it's just like you pick up where you left off. And you keep practicing and you keep practicing. You keep showing up. You keep reminding yourself to be present. You keep on breathing. You keep on gathering. You keep on reading. You do all these things that string it all together. And then you're like, oh, you know, you sit one day and your heart feels light, even in the midst of something challenging. And just tell it. Oh, you're doing great.
Well, now I wanna know, cause I'm outside.
I don't know.
Groups are.
Do I know?
She's
just enjoying.
I'm just enjoying.
But I was thinking about you with vegetarian, you know, with
Yeah, I went through a whole trip. This could be a whole nother class, really. There's a lot I could say about it, but yeah, essentially, you have the ability to create more suffering for yourself by
That's
thinking you're
awesome.
supposed to be something.
Yeah.
You know, and when I started this path, I was very committed. I was very strict with myself, and I did that for 4 years. And at the end of last year, I became very sick, and I'm just now feeling my vitality again. So this is why I'm laughing.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh yeah, just the other day I felt my vitality in a way that I haven't in a long time. And it took a year for me to recover from the harm I had caused my body because I was choosing not to listen to it. Because I was choosing to listen to the practices that you know the spiritual community is not exempt of wrong teachings too. The best teaching you can receive from this class tonight is to learn about yourself, learn about your body, and learn how you engage.
And a lot of what you read, like what you were saying about you can't just meditate in the mountains. Even the lifestyle practices of a monk, you know, like their lifestyle is completely supported. So it would be super easy. Easier. It's not super easy because even the stories that you read, it still comes obviously with its struggles and challenges. But to be in that, like when you go on a retreat, it's so easy to practice yoga, meditate every day, eat vegetarian, get along with everybody. You know,
Right there.
yeah.
Yeah. You know, it's interesting too because I did a month at Esalen. There's a beautiful institute in California that focuses on the human potential. And, you know, retreats are typically 1 week and they're magically blissful and they're supposed to be, and that's amazing. But I did this for 1 month, and by week 3,
Not so much.
everyone became themselves again. And our teacher was like, week 3 is always the hardest. Because all that shit goes out the door and you're like, nope, it's still me. I'm here. All right. It's all these same people and they're still doing that little annoying thing I noticed on day 1, but it didn't matter because we were all in these juicy vibes. No, it's annoying now. And, you know, or whatever it might be. And it's like, yeah, you know, retreats are amazing and they have a purpose. And it's so that all those things don't bother you so you can focus really deeply inward. But that isn't your everyday life.
You know?
Yeah. So there's a purpose, a deep purpose for a retreat, and it's at retreat, right? Your life isn't that. Your life is life, and it comes with all these joys and challenges, and these ups and downs, and interweavings, and communications, and other people, and
your life is also your path. There's nowhere to get to. There's no mistakes either. I mean, that's what I believe, that there's no mistakes. There's nowhere to get to. Everything, every single moment of every single day is your path. It's exactly where you're meant to be. And there's so much wisdom in every single moment. You know, we have this idea of getting somewhere, but it's every single moment. That's the letting go. I think someone said something about letting one somewhere and letting go. It's like, you let go into every single moment and trust what gets put in front of you in that moment is exactly what's meant to be there. Not like, what the hell is that? You know, that's not good enough. That's not gonna make me spiritual enough. That's not gonna make me happy. You know,
Who's the guy that says wherever you are, or wherever you go, there you are?
but I know
There's a
it's
guy who says that. It's pretty good.
yeah.
Wherever you go, there you are. And I can attest to that with all my traveling. Wherever I go, I'm right there.
Unless it's saying, you think you're enlightened, go home to your family.
Yeah.
Boy, was that the truth, let me tell
Spend a week
you.
with your family.
Yeah.
It says spend a week.
with your
I got 3 weeks a year to go.
That's a whole other workshop, is family.
Yeah.
That's our karma. Our families are
Chosen karma.
no, they're not chosen. I'm born into karma. We choose to, yes.
But
Right,
our souls choose our families to be born into.
right, but we don't choose our families in this life, like.
Like when we're born.
Yeah,
No.
but.
Oh, when they're born. Our spirits choose.
Right.
Society puts all of these expectations. I know for me, that's how I feel, like you're supposed to be here, you're supposed to be here.
And then it's up to you to just,
But that's hard when it's.
it's all hard. Like, it's
Yeah.
all the
I even
challenge,
see it
but
doing it with them, like, no, you need to go to school, you need to do this, you need, so that you're okay when you get older, or.
Well,
What is
what we
okay?
define as okay.
right,
Yeah.
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 So there, yes.
I'm doing that with my 16-year-old right now.
What is
Yeah.
it?
But what is okay?
Like, imagine if we were guided to listen to our intuition and our hearts, you know, like, there would not be so much social
No.
conditioning if we just listened and.
Really is beautiful when you do it. Follow your heart.
Yeah.
Follow the intuition.
Just trust and let go. I mean, that's like a whole other thing, getting into like the financial part of life, you know, because that's where we hold so much tension around too in this, our country. So we don't we don't have time.
That's
It's actually 9:04.
Oh,
So let's close our eyes. I thought we would never even start about tonight. Same process as we did upon arrival. And feel into the shifts in your body. The energy of the building. And feel the heart. You can walk away remembering just to do this. Hands over heart. That's the inner love goes response and reminds your body and causes your body to shift into heart center and calm your nervous system. Fantastic to feel our experience tonight with the sound of Om together. Let's take a deep breath in.
That was really beautiful, so everyone, I guess the sound of everyone. Yeah, it sounded very different than like, if you know, that's
Yeah.
what it's kind of like.
I can't finish yours, but I really, when it comes to